everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Chelsea here, and I am starting a new series on my channel that I'm very excited about. It's called How To Tuesdays. So every Tuesday I'm going to post a video showing you how to do an application of a particular part of your makeup routine. So today we're going to start off with how to apply eyeshadow. I feel like this is such a beautiful thing to do to complement your makeup, but I find it that it can be very daunting, especially if you're just not really sure how to start, what to use, what tools to use. So we're going to cover all of that in today's video. So stay tuned till the end so that you can learn how to apply eyeshadow and give you a beautiful look, the tools that you need to do it, and we're going to do this eye look with very minimal shadows. So we're not going to be using like 10-15 different eyeshadows to achieve this look. It's not on my eyes yet, but it's coming, so stay tuned. But before we get started, I definitely want to say thank you to all of you who have decided to click on my channel and watch this video. I truly appreciate your support. If you are a first-time viewer, I'd love for you to stick around and subscribe to my channel. And if you are a returning subscriber, you already know I so appreciate you, and I thank you so much for your constant support. Okay, let's get started. All right. So when it comes to eyeshadow, I know when I first started getting into makeup, I would look at all of these elaborate eye looks and I'd go, how am I ever going to achieve that? And then I'd look at the basic looks and I'd go, how am I going to achieve that? And so I learned how to apply eyeshadow by watching tons and tons of YouTube videos, and then of course trying them myself. And over the years, I've realized it comes down to just knowing the basics. Once you have the basics down, you really can go with these more elaborate looks. You can cut the crease, you can do all whatever. You have to have the basics down. And the basics are not hard. They're just the basics. You build upon the basics. So before we get started in the actual application, I wanted to talk about some tools that you'll need. So number one, your fingers are tools. Your fingers are great to apply shimmer shadows because you can get the most intensity from those shimmers and you're able to pack on those shimmers. So today I'll show you how I use my finger when we're packing on a shimmer to the lid. Next, you're going to need a blending brush, a very fluffy blending brush. So one of my favorites is the Morphe M441 brush, and as you can see, it's very fluffy. And this is great for blending out colors in your eyes. And I'm sure if you've ever watched any makeup tutorials, you constantly hear blend out the crease, blend out the edges. We don't want harsh lines because we don't want that. So you want a nice fluffy blending brush. You don't have to get this Morphe one. There's tons on the market, but this is one of my favorites. The second blending brush that I like to have is a smaller blending brush that works well with getting right into the crease and really blending in that color. So this is the Morphe M433 brush, and when we compare it to the Morphe M441 brush, you can see that this one, the shorter blending brush, is shorter. And I just washed mine, so mine are kind of a little frayed. And it's a little more slim to the side compared to this one, which is a little bit more rounded. So we'll see. I'll show you how we use these brushes. Then you're going to want a flat shader brush. So this is what I mean by flat and shader brush. So you've got it flat here, and it's kind of flat on front facing side and on the side here. The flat shader brush is great for packing on shadow onto the lid. So you can use your fingers, but you can also use your brush to do that. And then lastly, so we're only talking about 4 brushes here, you need some type of defining blending brush that's smaller. So, the flat shader brush was an M124 brush from Morphe. The last one that you want is the small blending brush. This is the Morphe E18 brush. And this type of brush is going to be great for blending out colors on the lower lash line. So of course it's much smaller than our initial blending brush, and that's because we're going to use it to blend out color on the lower lash line. Blend out color on the lower lash line. In my opinion, if you've got a staple 4 brushes like this, that's all you need to get started and to create some awesome eye looks. The Morphe brushes are excellent because they're very affordable. The brushes that I just showed you were all under $10. So these were the brushes that I initially started out with when I started really getting into makeup. And I still like them, but they're not the softest. So if you don't like Morphe brushes, like I said, don't feel like you have to buy them. Just make sure you have 2 blending brushes. One is more fluffy, one is a little bit more tapered, a flat shader brush, and then a small definer brush, and we're good. All right, so I'm gonna zoom you in and we're gonna start applying the eyeshadow. Are we close enough? Okay, so I'm going to use today the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. I just did a review on this palette, so I'll link it up in the cards if you'd like to go watch it. So I try to keep my eyeshadow looks when I'm on the go to about 3 or 4 shadows, 5 at the most, depending on, like I said, the amount of time that I have. So today we're going to use no more than 5 eyeshadows. I'm going to aim to use 4, but no more than 5. And I think 5 is a good number to stick at. It doesn't seem too intimidating, especially once you see what we're using them for. But you could definitely achieve a really good eye look too with just 3 colors. So let's get started. So I like to start my eye look by using matte shades. Matte shades are going to be those shades that don't have shimmer in them. And the reason why I like them is because it's easier to build upon matte shades when you're trying to add dimension to your eye. And that's what we want to go for. So, like you saw on my thumbnail, we don't want just a whole blank of color here and then a stripe of brow highlight here and then we're done. That type of look does not have any dimension to it. Especially if like the whole lid is just shimmery, it's just kind of like at you, and it's just a little aggressive. So I like starting off with matte shades to give me that dimension, to help the colors transition, blend well together, and get us a more defined, cohesive look. So I'm going to start off with the shade called Morning. So we've got this color right here. It's a beautiful skin, well, not skin tone color, but a beautiful peach color. Most of the time, my transition colors are also going to be closer to my skin tone, or they're going to be the lightest matte shade that I'm using that day. So we're going to start off with that M441 brush, that fluffy brush, and you're going to locate your crease. So I do have a defined socket, so I can figure out where my crease is. If you have hooded eyes or if you don't have a defined crease, essentially look at where your eyebrow is and then apply your initial transition color kind of right below your eyebrow. You want to leave a little bit of space here so we can apply a brow bone highlight, but you don't want to be up here initially. So use that as a guide to figure out where should I apply my first color, which is what we're calling our transition color. We call it a transition color because this is the color that's going to transition the eye look from lightest to deepest. So we're going to start here, and I like to use windshield wiper motions to get my color going. Now we're going to move into the crease, and the crease is literally this fold right here, right where your bone is going to be. So you've got your bone, orbital bone for all of my A&P people out there, and then you've got your crease right here. And like I said, if you have hooded eyes or you don't have a defined crease, you can still feel your bone here, and then where right below that bone is where we're going to have our crease. So now we're going to go in with that shorter blending brush. This is the Morphe M433 brush, and I'm going to go in with a darker matte shade. This is what we call Morgan. So I'm going to go in with this short shade called Morgan, and we're just going to apply that into the actual crease. So if you can see, I know these colors are light. We've got our transition color right here, and now we're applying Morgan right into the crease. So this is where I like to do my more circular motions to get that color nice and blended out. And the key to a really nice eye look really is your blending. You don't want the colors to just be stark and like not blended together, because then it just looks more choppy and you're not getting that cohesive look. A tip that I learned from Tati Westbrook, she's a huge YouTuber here, is lift up your eyes, especially if you have more mature lids or your lids just have a lot of excessive skin on it. Lift up your eyes, and that way you can get that color nice and diffused, and you won't have any skipping of your color, because I have very loose eyelids, and so sometimes if I don't lift my eyes up, when I look at my eyeshadow up close, I'll see that like some of my skin there doesn't have the color on it because my lids were wrinkly and I couldn't get the skin all the way in there. So if you see me kind of going like this, that's what I'm doing. So we're just gonna blend that in, and at this point, you're just blending color in until you reach the intensity that you want. So there's really no guide to how much should I apply here, because it really just all depends on how much color you want there. Now we're gonna go in with a third matte shade, because I like to have a minimum of 3 matte shades before I add a shimmer. And I think it just really helps to transition the color once again. So I'm going to use the same brush. I'm not switching brushes. And I'm going to go in with the shade Jasper. Once again, it's a matte shade. And what I want to do with this shade, tapping off your brush, you always want to tap off the brush. I want to concentrate this color on the outer portion of my eye, because I want to have my darker concentration of my color on the outer portion and then my lighter color toward the inner portion of the eye. The reason why I like to do that is so that my eye remains open and not closed. Now, if I'm going for a more like sexy, dramatic night look, then I will sometimes pack that dark color on and give me like a really smoky eye and, you know, all the drama. But it's a daytime look that I'm creating, so I want to keep my eye more bright, more awake, so I want to keep that darker color on the outer edge of my eye. So going in with that same brush, now I'm going to pack this color on the outer portion of the eye. See that? So now we're packing, and I'm going to build up the intensity of that color. We're packing, and like I said about the crease, you build this intensity to your liking. So there's no, you know, there's no benchmark of, oh, you need to stop now, because, you know, it just depends on what you're going for. Once you get that intensity to the color pigment that you want, now we're going to start to blend that color into the crease. But notice I'm just concentrating that color more so on the outer edge of the eye. So I'm not bringing it all the way to the inner corner, just keeping it concentrated here and blending that out. Because once again, we don't want to stamp on a color and not blend it out. So we're going to blend that out. I'm raising my eyelid so I can make sure I catch all of the skin here. Now notice how we've got this color here, and do you notice that it's a little bit sharp? Like this color is a little bit concentrated in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with that first blending brush that I have. I'm not adding any more color to it, and I'm just going to blend that out. And notice how we immediately just soften that right there. So when we hear no harsh edges, blend, 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 this is what we're talking about. Just making sure that everything looks cohesive and that we don't have any harsh lines. It never hurts to then also just re-blend that area to further confirm that we're all blended out. So there you go. Now we're going to pack on our shimmer. So I want to go in with the shade, I'm going to go in with the shade Day Spring right here. So I'm going to use my finger because, like I said, our fingers are tools, and especially when it comes to shimmers, they're so great at really giving us the best color payoff of our pigment, our shimmer shades. So I've got my shimmer here, and with my shimmer shades, I just pat them on to the lid. And as you can see, we've got a good payoff of that shimmer shade. The one thing though with your finger is you're not going to get a nice definition of that color. So let's go in with our flat shader brush, especially now that we're going to get into the inner corner of the eye. And we're going to then build the intensity there. Now some shimmer shades work best by packing them on. Some shimmer shades work best by swiping them on. And that's just going to take you figuring them out and, you know, seeing how they work. So once we build or get that shimmer on to our intensity, this is what we're looking like with this eye. And once again, going back in with that first blending brush, and we're just going to blend out the edges here, because we don't want any harsh edges even with our shimmers. We want to make sure everything's nice and blended. And sometimes what I will do, especially if I just really want to mesh the colors together, I'll go in with that first blending brush. I'll tap very gently into my deepest matte shade. So for me, it's that orangey shade. I'll tap very gently. So I've got this much color. tap it off, and then I'll blend into the inner corner of the eye over the shimmer with that color. And as you can see now, we really have caused a nice transition of color toward that outer eye, but it's not harsh, it's not too dark, and it also doesn't dull our shimmer, but it does help to blend our shimmer in a little bit more. So how many colors have we used? 1, 2, 3. We're at 4 colors. So now we need to work on the lower lash line. Now the lower lash line, I feel, really does pull the whole eye look together. If I would stop right now, finished off my makeup, I feel like the eye doesn't look complete. Like, I've got all this great color on top, but what about like the lower lash line? So that's where we take this smaller brush that we were talking about before, and we finish off that lower lash line, and we add our color to really complement the eye look. To me, the lower lash line is very easy because I literally tend to use just the same colors that I used in my crease and the outer corner of my eye on the lower lash line. And as of recently, especially for like my daytime looks, I'll reverse the order of the matte shades that I use so that I can have a nice blended, fluffy looking outer lower lash line. I don't know if fluffy is the right word, but that's what came to mind. So I'm gonna start off with Jasper, and once again, depending on how vampy or like dark you want your eyes to look will determine how far you bring in that darker color. So if you want your eyes to look really smoky and sexy, you want to bring that darker color all the way to the inner corner of your eye. But for a look like today, I want it to be a little bit more bright. So I'm going to take that color and I'm just going to stop it right around the middle of my eye. So we're going to start blending that color out. And if you are a beginner to eyeshadow, start off with a little color and then build, because it's so much easier to start off with a little and build to what you want versus starting out with a lot and then trying to correct what you're doing. So starting with that color here, we're going to blend it out. Then I'm going to go back into, I'm going to wipe my brush off just a little bit, going back in with the shade Morning, so that pinky peach color that we had, and then I'm going to then take that all the way to the inner corner. And notice how this peachy color, because it's a little lighter, now starts to blend out that more orangey color that we call Jasper. Do you guys see that? So now we're, once again, we're blending everything out. Everything's looking a little bit more seamless and blended together. And then lastly, we're going to go in with the shade Morning, which was our first transition color. And because it's a lighter color and I want a lighter look, we're going to take that all the way to the inner corner of the eye as well. And sometimes what I'll do, especially when I feel like I've got a nice lighter area here, but my outer area still looks a little more dark, I'll take that light color and then just kind of outline the edges of my eye to make sure, once again, everything's nice and blended. Lower lash line is done. I mean, that went bad. And then we want to add a inner corner highlight, and then if you like a brow bone highlight, we can add that. If you don't, we don't have to do that. So for the inner corner highlight, I'm going to go in with this shade called, I think it's called a Gate. So for your inner corner highlight, you want a color that's going to be bright, that's going to catch the light, and once again, keep that eye open. So I'm going to go in with my flat shader brush. You can use a smaller detailer brush, but I don't want you to make you feel like you've got to go out and buy all these brushes. So if you take your flat shader brush and put that color on, you can use that to apply your inner corner highlight. And I like to apply it here, and then I like to bring that along the lower lash line like so. Done. And then I should have probably have done this sooner, but if you just wipe your flat shader brush off, you'll still be fine. I like to use a matte shade for my brow bone highlight because sometimes I think shimmer shades don't look too well depending on the look that I'm going for. So I like a nice bone color for my brow bone highlight. So I'm going to go back in with that shade called Morning, and I'm going to use that with my flat shader brush, to highlight my brow bone highlight. And sometimes if I feel like, let's say this area wasn't blended out as much, I'll use that brow bone highlight to bring the color down just to blend that color out. Eye look is done. I don't think that was too bad. If it was, definitely let me know down in the comments below because I want this to be helpful. I'm going to finish off my makeup and we're going to come back and wrap this video up. Alright guys, so the eye look is done. What I did was, and I'll leave everything in the description box below, but I added a brown eyeliner to my lower lash line and my tight line. I used the MGrath Kohl eyeliner in Black Coffee, and then I added some mascara, and that was it. So we finished off our eye look. I think we got a very beautiful eye look. We only used 5 eyeshadows. We only used 4 tools. And like I said, once you nail down the basics of applying your eyeshadow, you get comfortable doing it, you can do an eye look in honestly no time. And then you can build upon that to get those more elaborate looks. But if you're like me and you're just the everyday girl who just likes her makeup to look good and look fresh, then this will be your go-to eye look. And you can just call it a day. So I really hope that you found this tutorial helpful. I didn't use an eye primer, and I didn't use an eye primer, if I'm going to be really honest with y'all, because I just forgot. Some days I use an eye primer, some days I don't, and so it really just kind of depends on your preference. If you feel that you have a lot of pigmentation on your eyelids and you want to cancel them out, then I suggest definitely using an eye primer. You can use your concealer just to give yourself a nice base. But you don't need to use an eye primer, so I don't want you to feel like you have to use one. That's obviously just a preference. And like you saw today, I didn't use one because I honestly forgot. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope that you found it helpful and you can use these tips to help you apply your eyeshadow better. Definitely leave me down in the comments below ideas that you want for How-To Tuesdays. I'm thinking of doing a how-to on how to apply eyelashes, false lashes, how to apply your foundation, your contour, your bronzer, your highlight, your blush. I literally want to break down every application of makeup and give it to you all in some simple steps so that when you do a full face, you're like, man, I really am capable of doing this. So yeah, definitely leave me comments down in the comment section below of what you'd like me to see, of what you would like me to do next. And I hope to see you all in my very next video. Bye guys.